I think that making a teapot is an essential exercise for every potter. I try to do it at least once a year. This is our daily driver pot that we'll be using for the next year. I do want to admit right up front that I don't really have a solid plan in my mind as to how this pot's going to turn out when I started. You'll see a couple times along the way where I change which way I'm going, shape of a spout or the fitment of the lid. So be forgiving, you'll see things change along the way. So if you're not aware, a teapot is really three pieces. The first is throwing the body, the next is the spout or the lid. But those three things need to be made, and you usually do them on bats, one at a time, and basing the size of the lid obviously on your final pot and how you decide to make a seat for it. You can kind of see my design process being a little fluid at this point. Moving around where the seat is, how wide I want it to be open, and not really worrying about it being perfect. The rib is really helpful in pushing around the wall and getting the curve that I want, but again, this is a personal teapot. It's not a for sale. I'm not putting it in a show. Just for me, just for fun. This piece of clay is way bigger than necessary to make a lid. I just reached up and honestly grabbed the next ball of clay in the bag, and so you can see I push it around and I continually come back and trim it until it looks like what I want it to. When I first started making spouts, I think I was obsessed with really thin walls and a really small hole. And in truth, I don't make them that way anymore. So you'll see I'm going to make something that's a little bit more robust, a little bit more open, and I think pours a little bit better. So the next step is trimming. Here I'm using a ceramic chuck on a different wheel to trim the lid. I left the bottom of the lid thick, initially thinking that I was going to leave a kind of a ring sticking up to engage in the body of the pot. Decided not to do that. Flattened it off, flipped it over. Also realized I didn't like that rim, so I wanted to trim that down as well. One thing you'll notice when I'm trimming the body is that the clay looks like it's still sticky, which it is. I intentionally left the clay softer because we have to attach the handle and the spout, and the softer we could do that, the better. As usual, the normal rules of slipping and scoring apply. And when it comes to poking the holes for the tea to flow through, and possibly to hold back leaves, drill bits work great. When it comes to pulling a handle, it always makes sense to pull one longer than you need. You see here I hang it for a bit before I install it. Keeping extra sponges in the studio to help support your handles is a good practice. And once it's leather hard, you do have one more opportunity to kind of push everything together to make sure it fits just perfect. So I haven't waxed anything on this pot, and you'll notice in the next frame when it comes back that the rim is cleaned, and similarly on the lid I didn't wax anything. We're not going for a perfect finish. I simply sponge away the glaze where I don't want it to stick, and it worked out pretty good. And here it is fired. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed.